This is a fighting game that has been declared dead, then resurrected, only to be left waiting once again, at least 3 separate times now. Just this past week, it happened again. A new sequel that fans had been quietly hoping for was reportedly canceled before most people even knew it existed. So today, let's explore the game that refuses to either fully die or fully return. This is the story of Killer Instinct. Stick around because by the end you'll understand exactly why this particular game keeps getting caught in this loop, while other fighting games from the same era either vanished completely or evolved into permanent franchises. Let's dive into it. Picture an arcade in 1994. Street Fighter had already reshaped the entire genre, and Mortal Kombat had discovered that digitized blood and brutal finishers were excellent ways to attract teenagers and enrage parents. In the midst of all that noise, a completely different cabinet made its appearance, one that didn't quite seem to belong in 1994 at all. The secret behind it was that the developer, a British studio called Rare, was quietly experimenting with expensive professional graphics workstations. They built detailed 3-dimensional character models and then converted those renders into a format that arcade hardware could actually display. This process gave the game a strange, almost unbelievable depth compared to everything else on the arcade floor. However, the real brilliance wasn't just in the graphics. It was the marketing seamlessly integrated into the cabinet. Nintendo had linked this arcade game to the mythology of its upcoming next-generation console, a mysterious machine still known only by its codename at the time. Approaching that cabinet felt less like playing a regular arcade game and more like getting an exclusive preview of hardware that nobody could actually buy yet. You couldn't take the future home, but for a quarter, you could stand right in front of it. Graphics alone don't create obsession though. What truly hooked players was how the fighting felt. Rare designed the entire combat system around chaining attacks into long, impressive combinations, ensuring that everyone watching the cabinet could see exactly what was happening. An announcer would shout increasingly dramatic descriptions as the combo count climbed higher and higher, transforming a normal match into something resembling a public performance. Meanwhile, the player on the receiving end of a combo had one dramatic way to fight back, a mechanic literally called the combo breaker, which meant that even when losing badly, there was still a chance for a comeback moment worth watching. Imagine it like a wrestling match, complete with a hype man standing ringside. Winning wasn't subtle, it was loud, theatrical, and specifically designed to draw a crowd around the machine. Then there was the roster, a cybernetic soldier, a secret agent, a werewolf, a walking skeleton, a full-size dinosaur, and an alien made entirely of ice, all fighting in the same game. It felt like no one on the design team ever said no to an idea, and this willingness to throw everything at the wall made the cast feel completely unique compared to other arcade games at the time. Of course, none of that mattered if people couldn't play it at home. This created a real problem because the console it eventually landed on didn't have the power to run what players had seen in the arcade. The team had to strip down the graphics, animation, and presentation to fit the game on aging hardware. Nintendo embraced this challenge instead of hiding it. The home version shipped in a black cartridge, instantly standing out on shelves crowded with identical gray ones. It also came bundled with a full soundtrack CD, an unusual move at the time that made the package feel like more than a regular game release. While the graphics couldn't match the arcade spectacle, the elements that mattered, combos, breakers, and attitude, survived the downgrade intact. For a brief moment, it genuinely seemed like this series was poised to become one of the fighting genre's enduring pillars. A sequel followed in arcades a couple of years later and eventually made its way to Nintendo's next-generation console, the very machine that this franchise had been quietly promoting since day one. On paper, this should have been the perfect payoff moment. However, the fighting game world hadn't remained stagnant during the wait. Other studios had begun creating fully 3-dimensional fighters with genuinely revolutionary movement and depth. What had once seemed like a glimpse of the future in 1994 now looked like just one option among several increasingly impressive competitors. It's akin to being the only person in town with a genuinely fast car for a couple of years, only to see every dealership start selling cars with the same speed. The advantage that once made you special quietly becomes less significant. Then, without any dramatic announcements, the series simply stopped. No third entry or steady sequel cycle followed. Around this time, the business relationship between the developer and Nintendo eventually dissolved entirely, and in 2002, Microsoft bought the studio outright for $375 million. The franchise that once helped sell an entire console generation went completely dormant, following its creators into a different corner of the industry. Here's where the story takes a genuinely unusual turn. Most franchises that vanish for close to 2 decades tend to stay gone, but this one didn't. In 2013, 17 years after the last new entry, the series returned as a launch title for a brand new Xbox console. Instead of simply copying the old formula, the new development team reimagined the fighting system around the same core idea while modernizing it significantly. They kept long combos central to gameplay, but gave defenders sharper tools to counterattack mid-combo. A few years later, Microsoft reported that the Reboot had attracted over 10 million players across console and PC combined. Let's pause here because this is one of the stranger comeback stories in gaming, a franchise that essentially skipped an entire console generation, yet still managed to attract a real, lasting audience once it returned. If stories like this about franchises that defy the usual patterns interest you, this channel covers one every week. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next one. Now, back to the story. For a while, it genuinely seemed like this series had found stable ground. A decade after that surprising 2013 return, the development team came back with a 10th anniversary update, adding balance changes, smoother matchmaking, and visual improvements for newer hardware. Executives at the publisher publicly expressed how much they valued the franchise, and a small but dedicated competitive community kept the game alive in tournaments year after year, long after many assumed it had quietly faded away again. Here's what makes this story particularly relevant right now, as it continues to develop. For the past couple of years, rumors have circulated that a new sequel was in early development within the publisher's walls. Then in early 2025, the small studio responsible for the recent updates underwent significant layoffs, shrinking dramatically from its original size. Just last week, an industry insider reported that a new entry in this series had been in development at one point, but was quietly canceled. Around the same time, the publisher confirmed its major upcoming showcase lineup, and notably, this franchise was absent. So here we are again, in another cycle. A moment where the door cracked open just enough for people to get their hopes up, only to quietly close once more. What makes this story different from most rise and fall narratives you've heard is that it's not a tale of one clean death. This franchise keeps surviving specifically because it almost dies repeatedly, in a cycle that somehow never fully resolves. So, is this series finished for good this time? Honestly, based on its history, probably not permanently. However, whether the next chapter arrives in 1 year or another 17 is anyone's guess at this point. If you remember playing the original arcade cabinet or joined in during the 2013 comeback, share which era was yours in the comments. And if you enjoyed seeing how a franchise can survive merely by refusing to ever completely close the door, that's exactly the kind of story this channel covers every week. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one.